So on the back of the unit, we have 2 stereo inputs, 2 stereo outputs, a MIDI input jack, and a power jack. So first let's go over these 6 knobs here at the top. Here you have your basic wet, dry mix knob. Over here we have a size parameter which controls the size of the space, which allows you to tune the reverb to your sound. And to the right of that we have a pre-delay which sets the delay time before the reverb occurs, and that goes from 0 to 500 milliseconds. And down here we have reverb time, which controls the decay of the reverb. And to the right of that we have this damping knob, which controls the amount of damping you have in the reverb tail. And finally, over here to the left, you have a data knob, which is a general purpose data entry knob depending on some of the functions you have selected here. In the middle here, you have a screen which can show up to 16 LEDs. Currently, I have it set as a VU meter. But you can change what it displays, and we'll take a look at that later. But for now, let's move on to the buttons here and move from left to right. So the first button we have here is the active button, and this is your basic bypass switch. So you can choose one of 3 bypass modes for the active button. You have relay, spillover, and aux. In relay mode, when the active switch is off, inputs are directly connected to the outputs via a relay, and the electronics are completely bypassed. The tail of the reverb is muted when the active switch is off. The second option is spillover. This is an electronic bypass. The tail of the reverb is not muted when the active switch is off. And finally, you have aux. The mix pot sets the level of the reverb, and the active switch mutes the reverb input when it's off. So this is useful for plugging into a send return on a console, for example. In order to switch between the 3 modes, you hold down the active button for 2 seconds. And now you can see this little LED here, which you can use the data knob to control. So the first one is relay, the next one over is spillover, and finally you have aux. And then you just press active again to confirm your choice. Moving down from there, we have a tap tempo button, which you can configure to either choose the pre-delay time or the reverb time. And similarly to here, the way you configure the setting is you hold the button down for 2 seconds. And now the first LED shows you pre-delay time, and the second one is reverb time. And again, you tap it again to confirm. And of course, to use the tap tempo, you just tap it in whatever rhythm you want. To the right of the tap tempo button, we have these 4 function buttons. The first one here is type and allows you to choose one of 7 reverb algorithms. To change the reverb algorithm, you just press the type button and then you switch with the data wheel. So right now I have room selected. The next one over is hall, then plate, ambient, chorus, nonlinear, and primitive. To the right of the type, we have this input gain function, which allows you to set an input gain from 0 to plus 15 dB. And due to the built-in diode clipper, increasing the gain can add a nice character to the reverb signal. Again, to set the input gain, you push the button and then you use a data wheel. So this is 0 dB gain, all the way up to plus 15. To the right of the input gain, we have a filters function, which allows you to set the cutoff frequency for the low cut filter and the high cut filter. At the top here, we have the frequencies for the low cut filter, which go from 20 Hz, 80 Hz, 150 Hz, 250 Hz, and then 450 Hz. And on the second line of LEDs, we have a high cut filter frequency that goes 1.8 kHz, 4.5 kHz, 7 kHz, 9 kHz, and 15 kHz. And you can change these 2 cutoff frequencies one at a time. So if I press filters once, now I'm controlling the cutoff frequency of the low cut filter with the data wheel. And if I press filters again, now I'm in the second line controlling the cutoff frequency of the high cut filter. So let's hear what that sounds like. And to the right of the filters, we have a chorus function. This adds modulation to the reverb signal. To change the value, push chorus once and then use the data wheel. It's off now. This is light, medium, and strong. To the right of chorus, we have the freeze function, which freezes the reverb. And you can have this button function in two different ways, either in latch mode or momentary switch mode. In latch mode, you press it once to turn it on and again to turn it off. In momentary mode, as long as your finger is down, it is on, and then when you release, it turns off again. To change the different modes, you hold chorus and freeze together for 2 seconds. Now the first LED indicates we're in latch mode, and when you switch to the second one, then you're in momentary mode. And you press freeze again to confirm. Let's see what that sounds like. As you can tell right now, the display here indicates the VU meter while I play a sound. But this display mode can be changed. It can either be off in VU meter mode or in preset mode. And to change that, you just hold type for 2 seconds. The first LED is off, second is VU mode, and the third LED is preset mode, which shows you the currently activated preset. On top of the freeze button, we have this preset button. The BAM has up to 36 presets, comprised of 6 banks of 6 presets each. To select a preset, you push the preset button. Now the top row indicates what bank you're currently selected, and now it's prompting me to select a bank, so I can use one of these 6 buttons. So let's say I want bank 4, I can hit the 4th button. And now the second row is blinking, asking me to input a preset. And again, you have 6 presets, so you can use these 6 buttons here. So if I want preset 2, and now I've loaded that preset. To save a preset, you follow a very similar procedure, but this time you hold the preset button down for 2 seconds. Now the preset button is flashing, asking me to save it. So again, I pick a bank, and then a preset slot, and now it's saved. Each preset has its own mix value recorded, but sometimes it could be useful to load a preset while keeping the existing mix value on the panel here. So in order to achieve that, you can choose between 2 different modes. Preset mode, in which case the mix value is loaded from the preset, or local mode, in which case the mix value is used here on the front panel. In order to choose between these 2 modes, you hold the input gain button for 2 seconds. And now LED 1 here indicates we're in preset mode, but I can switch over to LED 2, which indicates local mode. And you push input gain again to confirm. If you want to prevent presets from being overwritten, you can turn on memory protection. And in order to do that, you hold preset and freeze at the same time for 2 seconds. So now the first LED indicates that memory protection is off, and the second one indicates that it's on. And you push these buttons again to confirm. There's 3 different things you can configure when it comes to MIDI. And in order to enter the MIDI settings page, you hold preset and you press active. Now these 3 buttons here are flashing, indicating 3 different menus you can choose. Either MIDI channel selection, MIDI filter configuration, or the program change map. To change the MIDI channel, you select the first button, and now you can choose one of 16 MIDI channels with the data wheel. In order to change MIDI filters, you select the second option here, and now you have a choice between 2 different filters to toggle, continuous controller or program change, and that'll filter out the corresponding MIDI signal types. So the BAM can respond to program change controls for selecting presets. So there are 128 different values for program change in the MIDI spec, and the bank has up to 36 presets. And you can configure any of these program change numbers to map to any preset. In order to configure that, you can go to the MIDI menu by holding preset and pressing active, and then choosing this third button here, which is program change map. Now the unit is in standby. When it receives a program change through the MIDI input, it'll prompt you to select a preset similarly to how we did the loading preset earlier. And while you're in this program change menu, if you press chorus and freeze together at the same time, it'll clear the current mapping. It's worth noting that BAM responds to MIDI CC signals as well, and you can control all the parameters we've been setting with regards to the reverb via MIDI signals. So that summarizes the OTO Machines BAM. I really love this interface. It's very simple and consistent, and it really invites you to play it like an instrument. The knobs feel great, it's got great build quality, and it sounds amazing.